Guys, topic is SSH. What I told you in the beginning, that whenever you are studying about any protocol, you must know few things about that protocol. Guys, it will make your learning easier. See, if somebody asks me about SSH, how I have stored information about SSH in my brain. First thing that will come in my mind, at which layer it will work. Fine. Second thing, it will use TCP or what is the port number? Why it is used? What are the commands to enable SSH? What are the commands to verify SSH? Next, how client can use. At the end of the day, who has to take remote access? Client. If you are a network engineer also, you are working in a company, at the end of the day, you will be a client. You will be an end user sitting at your machine and you have to take remote access. Agree? Now, first question, at which layer it will work? 7. SSH stands for secure shell. Fine. It will use TCP. What it will use? TCP. Its port number is 22. Why it is used? It is used for remote accessing, or you can say it is used for secure remote accessing. Fine. Now, what are the commands to enable SSH? We will see to it when we will do it when we will do the practical. This thing and this thing. We will do it when we will do the practical. Now I am starting with the process, how SSH works. Fine. Now guys, what I am saying, this is a router. Every router is by default acting as a बाजीगर. हाँ. पढ़ियो क्या लिखा है. बैठे बैठे यार, खड़े नहीं होना. What do you mean by this thing? Guys, see, in Telnet or in SSH, what we are working on server client model. Agree? All of us are by default Telnet clients, but all of us are by default not SSH clients. First of all, I am talking about clients. Who are clients? Who has to Telnet or who has to SSH? By default, all of us are Telnet clients, but by default, all of us are not. Why? Okay. What thing you will use to Telnet? Your computer. What things you will use? Your computer. On your computers, you might be running Unix, Linux, Windows, Mac, Android. Now, these three operating systems cannot act as, but Unix and Linux can act as SSH clients. So guys, first thing that is clear, if I am sitting on a system and that system is connected to internet, that internet is connected to a router. Fine. What I have to do is I have to access this router from this system. So what I told you yesterday, that if you are accessing a device via internet, you cannot use Telnet, you have to use SSH because it is secure. Fine. Now, one thing is very clear, if on this machine you have Unix or you have Linux, then this machine can act as SSH client. If it is running Windows, if it is running Mac or any other operating system, it cannot act as SSH client. So if it is running Windows or Mac, now the thing is, if I am running Windows and Mac and I have to SSH this device, what I will do? I have to install a software called PuTTY. This thing is clear? Now, if someone asks you a question, is router acts by default as a SSH client? Then you will say yes. Do user act by default as a SSH client? It depends on the operating system. Agree? Shall we move on? Now, what you will do? You have to access this router. So guys, first thing that is needed for remote accessing, that is connectivity. If there is no connectivity, you cannot SSH or Telnet any device. It's not possible. This thing is clear. What do you mean by connectivity? See, Ravi. Yesterday we took the example of Ravi. Let's say Ravi and his girlfriend, they want a chat. So there are only two ways they can have chat. I am only saying chat. Fine. So one is they physically meet and they can have chat. Other is on the phone. So when they are calling each other on the phone, one thing is there. Their phones are actually connected. The same thing I am saying, this computer must be able to reach that router. That router must be able to reach this computer. Only then you can do SSH or Telnet. This thing is clear. Second condition is same. Enable password must be set. Guys, just try to understand. These two are the common conditions. Common conditions. Whether I am doing Telnet or I am doing SSH. Agree? Now, what are the other conditions? Point A. Host name must be specified on out. Second condition. Second condition. Domain name. पढ़ लिया SSH. अब बताऊंगा, रुक जाओ. Domain name must be specified. Next. enable using step number 4, create database. Database means username and password. Next step, E, create virtual sessions. Next point, login local. Next point, disable Telnet. This thing is fine. Now you can only SSH. You cannot Telnet. Otherwise, if I enable SSH on a router, by default Telnet is also enabled. This thing is clear? Fine. So these will be the steps that we will be following. After doing all these things, SSH will be enabled on the router. Now guys, we have to discuss the process. Process is like, this user will send a request to the router that what I want to do, I want to access you through SSH. What this router will do? This router will say, please enter username and password, but router will generate a key. What router will do? Router will generate a router will keep, or router will encapsulate all the data in that key, and router will send this key to the user. This thing is clear? Now user will open the key. User will say, router is asking for username and password. User will enter username and password. User will wrap again username and password into the key and send it to the router. Router will again decapsulate the key, check username and password, and give user the authorization. Yes, you can access my device. This thing is clear? Like I told you, in real time, all this database is controlled by ACS, Cisco Secure Access Control Server. Fine? This thing is clear? So this is how things will work. So first of all, I will tell you how to SSH. So guys, instead of showing you how to SSH from in packet tracer, I will be showing you the same practical on GNS. Fine? Do you have any problem? I think you have done the practical on packet tracer. All of you? Fine, that's good. Tasty, very. How many total routers are there? How many switches are there? It means total number of devices are 4. Fine. I have to tell you about DNS also. That's why I am doing this. Fine. this guy is SSH, this guy is SSH, this guy is also SSH client. Fine. The network I will be running here will be, आप बताओ आज कोई नेटवर्क में बोर हो गया हूँ. हाँ जी बताओ. फाइन. इतना गंदा नेटवर्क है देखना. फाइन. I will assign a IP here. 1. Next. Here. Fine. Any problem? Visible? With the diagram, with console, everything visible? Any issue? Problem? Okay, one question to all of you. All of you know about this command? Show IP? Show IP interface? First of all, if I want to check the interfaces on which there is IP, I don't want to see the interfaces on which there is no IP. What I will do? Show IP interface, pipe, exclude unass. Unass means unassigned. वो मतलब नहीं था जैसा आप सोच रहे थे. It is just showing me the interface which has IP addresses assigned. See, it's looking good. This output was not looking good. Yes, this is what I want to see. Next thing. What do you mean by status and what do you mean by protocol? Yes. यहाँ असाइंड कहीं लिखा हुआ है. ये आउटपुट था. दिस इज द ओवरऑल आउटपुट. Anywhere you can see it's written like assigned. खत्म कर यार. इंक्लूड जब आप लिख रहे हो तो इंक्लूड कुछ होना चाहिए. हाँ, करेक्टर मैच करेगा वो. अब उसने ये अनएस ढूंढ लिया और वो वाली लाइन मुझे नहीं दिखाई. ठीक है जी. यस, क्वेश्चन तो मेरा था. आई वाज आस्किंग अ क्वेश्चन. स्टेटस एंड okay. Now I will show you the whole thing. I want my answer. Again I am showing you. // I am shutting the interface. See, actually here I am getting 2 log messages. How many logs? One is interface fast Ethernet 0/0 change state to administratively. What's written here? Second log, line protocol on interface fast Ethernet 0/0 change state to. It means these are 2 different things. Agree or not? When I will no shut it, again I will get how many logs? How many logs? 2 logs. Why? You want it as a homework or you want me to tell? Your wish. If this is a router, this is again another device, switch. So guys, state means from your end. Port is administratively up or administratively up or down. Administratively up means you are running command. Administratively down means you are running the command shut. What do you mean by protocol? Protocol is telling this link, this overall link is up or not. If remote end is not up, what do you mean by remote end? If interface of switch is not up, on R1 it will show you state as up but protocol as down. Why? Because protocol is the thing that is generated for a link, not for a interface. I will show you also. It's all about observation. See, line protocol, protocol for the line. This thing is clear. So this thing is showing me that the link is working fine. And in real time, in what cases you will find protocol down? When the other end is not up or there is some problem with the cable. Fine. Like I am connecting router with a switch. From my end everything is fine, but on the other end cable is unplugged. What will happen here? At this end state will be up, protocol will be down. Now guys, I can ask you a question at the same time. How both the ends get to know about each other? Question is clear? How they are getting to know about each other? How? Are they exchanging any packets? Yes. They are exchanging some packets. What we call those packets? Those packets are called, what we call them? Keep alives. What we call them? Keep alives. This thing is clear? Okay, there is no need to study. I am just telling you for your knowledge that on Ethernet media, on which media? Loop protocol is working. Which protocol? You can see here, protocol is loop. Configuration, test protocol. Fine. In which it is using a source MAC and a destination MAC. There is no data. You can see it's empty. What is this thing? Skip count. How many times packets are skipped? Fine. If this value will increase, protocol will go down. This thing is clear? You can see here. It is sending it continuously after every 10 seconds. Fine. You can see here 14, 24, 34, 44. It means key pe lives are exchanged after every 10 seconds. This thing is clear? Now, I will come on R2 and R3 and I will configure IP addresses on them. Done. Shall I try to ping 11.1.1.1? See here. I am able to ping. Any issue? No. Done. Show IP interface brief. Exclude unass. Assigned. Status is also up and protocol is also up. Now you want to check one thing? I will go to R1. Sorry, I cannot control here configuration of switch. Otherwise, I will show you that protocol can be down also. This thing is clear? So, the basic things I am done with. I have assigned IP addresses to all of the routers. Now, what I have to do? I have to configure SSH on server. I have to configure R1 as SSH server. So, guys, I will start step by step. First command, host name is. Second command, domain name is. Next command, I am new to SSH, so I am viewing the things. Okay. One more question. How size matters? How this size matters? I am creating a 512-bit key, or I am creating 1024-bit key, or I am creating, you can create key between which to which size? Fine. If I am creating a key of, what is the difference? Key size will increase because of key size. Payload size will increase. And as big as the payload is, there are chances that there can be fragmentation. So key must be small. Fine. Done. After that, username, password. After that, first line number. How many sessions you can create here? 900. Any doubt? I am creating here how many sessions? Login. What is the use of login local? They will provide you username and password prompts. By default, like I told you, as you enable SSH, Telnet is also by default. So you can check this thing, verify this thing. How? From R2. 11.1.1. Username is test. Password is also test. I'm having the access. See which protocol I am using. Telnet. Which protocol I am using? Okay, I don't want to confuse you. I will write here Telnet 11.1.1. I am able to Telnet. Username is, password is. Fine. Now I will move on to R3. From R3 I will SSH. How? SSH minus L. Do we have more options? Yes. Minus, after that, username, test, password, password is, I got the access. This thing is clear. Now guys, I will go back to R1 to verify. Show IP. What message I am getting here? Yes. SSH is enabled. Timeout time is. It means if the user will not enter any command for 120 seconds, session will be timeout. Authentication retries are by default defined as 3. It means for 3 times you can enter wrong password. What was my domain name? Cisco. Key name. R1 dot. This is the guy's key. Which is generated. Fine. Guys, how many of you know about cryptography? Have you heard about this term? Okay. Actually, it is not the work of single key. It is the work of a pair of keys. One key is called public key, other key is called private key. See, what I will do, just think like you all are users. Fine. I will generate 2 keys. One is public key, other is private key. I will share my public key with all the users. I am telling them, whenever I will send you the information and you have to decrypt it, please use my public key I am sending to you. And whenever I have to encrypt the information, which key I will use? My private key. This is how things will work. I am not digging too much into it because symmetric and asymmetric encryption is not your part. That is part of CCNA security. Fine. When time will come, you will get to know about those things. But for now, you can understand it like whenever you enable SSH on a device, 2 keys are generated. One is public, other one is private. So public key is the key that I will share with everybody. So whenever they have to decrypt data or encrypt data for me or from me, they will use that public key. And when I have to encrypt my data, I will use my private key. Fine. This thing is clear. This is how things will work. Fine. Now, next thing, show users. You can check here, one user test is accessing the device from which IP? One user test is accessing the device from which IP? It means same username and passwords can be used from more than one location. Same username and passwords can be used from more than one location. Fine. Test, test. I want to clear the user. I will write here clear who is connected only. It means this session is closed by foreign host. Clear line 99. This session is also closed by foreign host. Next thing, I want to disable Telnet. Line PTY 024. Transport input SSH. Transport input. It means I am telling my device, please accept input requests which are coming on port number 22. Not those requests which are coming on port number 23. 23. Now see here, R2 is trying to Telnet. Connection refused by a remote host. R3. Done. Password is done. Any problem? So this is how things will work. Fine. Yesterday we discussed one more thing regarding this. Instead of IP, what you want to use? Host name. What you can do? That was the local database that you were creating. What was that? Local database. Fine. This thing is clear. Now, what we will be doing? This guy is R1. This is a R2, R3. These are clients. Actually, what I will do, I will configure this router as a DNS server. Just tell me what is the use of DNS. DNS stands for, are you sure? It works on which layer? It uses which port number? Are you sure? It will always be UDP. It cannot be TCP. It cannot be TCP. Where? Fatabat. It can be TCP also. See, remember it like this. Piyush sir is an idiot. He told us DNS also uses TCP. That information was incorrect given by him. Fine. Remember it like this. Leave. I cannot make you understand when it will use TCP. You are not on that stage now. Fine. Leave it. Why we use it? How many of you know the use of DNS? No? See, every website has a name, like you are writing अरे www.poet.com कितना गलत था। अब देखो, सोच देखो भारतीय लोगों की, तभी तो तुम पकड़े जाते हो। तुम्हारे घर वाले हिस्ट्री चेक कर लेते हैं तुम्हारी। मेरी तो बहुत ज्यादा क्लियर है हिस्ट्री। अपना रिकॉर्ड बहुत अच्छा है ना यार लाइफ में, हम तभी पकड़े नहीं जाते। बाद में करेंगे बात इस बारे में। फाइन गाइस, व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू, behind every name there is an IP. So this is the work of DNS server to resolve that IP. To resolve that IP. It's not possible for humans to remember IP address for every websites. So like you are accessing www.poet.com. Fine. So what your computer will do? Your computer will ask DNS server, please provide me IP for poet.com. He will provide you a IP. It means what thing he is doing? He is resolving name to IP. You are giving him the name, he is resolving name to IP, is giving you the IP. Fine. In the same way, we are discussing here that these guys will say SSH R1. They will send their request to the DNS server. Now DNS server will tell them that R1 is 11.1.1.1. This thing is clear? Now they will send SSH request for 11.1.1.1. Fine. So these guys will act as clients and these guys will act as server. So on this server there must be a database. Database for what thing? For IPs and host names. Agree or not? This thing is clear? Like your DNS server is actually having a database. Like YouTube is having this IP. Other tubes you are accessing is having this IP. And Facebook you are accessing is having this IP. So it is also having a database. Who has created that database? The one who is providing the service. Agree or not? So here, who is making you understand? I. So I have to create that database. This thing is clear? Very clear? Fine. So first work, I always divide work in steps. So on the DNS server, first thing, configure router as DNS server. Second thing, create database. Fine. Now from client perspective, tell client who is DNS server. This thing is clear. And domain name lookups must be on. What do you mean by domain name lookups? We will discuss about this thing first. Then we will tell client who is your DNS server. Then we will configure server. Fine. These will be the steps that we will be following. Fine. First thing, what are domain name lookups? So guys, come on any client. I am writing here 11.1.1.1. I am specifying anything telnet or SSH? No. But still, my router is trying 11.1.1.1. He is trying to establish a telnet connection. How? How my router will get to know that I am trying to telnet? How? Okay. You write here one command like this. Unknown command or computer name. Okay. Unknown command or computer name. Yes, you can take attendance first. So guys, you have seen an error on routers. Domain name server 255.255.255.255. That shit happens whenever you enter a wrong command on router. What router will do? What is the behavior of router? Router is saying that there can be only two chances. What are those two chances? That if a user is entering a command on me, that command is right or that command is wrong. There is no third case. If command is right, router will execute the command. Agree? Like I am writing here conft. Router will execute the command. If command will be wrong, router will never execute it. What router will do? Router will send it to the domain name server. Like if I write here R1, translating R1, what router is thinking that there is a domain name server located in my domain. I must send a UDP packet to the domain name server to resolve this domain name. Maybe server can tell me what is the IP for this domain name. Agree or not? This thing is clear? So, first thing that we need is domain name lookup must be on. This thing is clear? By default, router will send all domain name lookups to which address? 255.255.2.255. Because router don't know about its domain name server. This thing is clear? So first thing that I will do is I will tell my device, I will tell my client who is your domain name server. Now see here, IP name server is the command on clients. If you are treating a router as a DNS client, so on DNS client you have to run a command IP name server to tell the router where you have to send the DNS request. Fine. DNS server will be fine. Any issue? Now if I write R1, he is sending request to domain server 11.1.1. But 11.1.1.1 will never give him a reply because he is actually not a DNS server. This thing is fine. Now, on clients, always you have to run one command. First of all I will show you. Show run section IP. Oh, sorry. You can check this command. This command is by default running on my router. Agree? This command is by default running on my router. So, I am telling you the use of this command. Try to understand. Fine. By default command is IP domain name is lab.local. See, I am a client. Agree? I am a client. When I will send DNS request to router, there will be a source. What will be the source? Source will be my domain name. Source will be my, so my source will be lab.local. But on the DNS server, I am having entry for my host name, not for my domain name. Okay, this thing will be very clear. I will show you here. This is how I understand this thing. Now look here, R2. I will move on to R1. Conf T. To configure router as a DNS server, command is IP DNS server. This thing is clear. Second, I have to create database. I have to tell router that IP host. Name of host R1. Who is R1? 11.1.1.1. Agree? Fine. Any problem? Now I will send a request from R2. R1. Translating R1. Request is sent to domain name server. This thing is clear. Now I will show you something. See, my name is going as r1.lab.local. Just try to understand. Actually, I am sending query for R1. Agree? On the DNS server, database is maintained for R1. But when domain name is defined on the client, my router will add domain name with it. It will make the name as r1.lab.local. Now, when my router will send a query, my router will send query for r1.lab.local. It will be received by DNS server. DNS server will check. Do I have an entry for r1.lab.local? No, I don't have a entry because on server or in database entry is for R1, not for r1.lab.local. Dobara, I am a client. I am sending a request to the server. Whenever domain name is defined on a client, what client will do? Client will add host name plus domain name. I am actually sending query for R1, but because domain name is defined on the client, R1 is sending query for r1.lab.local, but the same name does not exist in the database. हिंदी में बताता हूँ, मैं एक क्लाइंट हूँ. अगर मुझ पे डोमेन नेम प्रेजेंट होगा तो जब भी मैं क्वेरी सेंड करूंगा मैं अपना होस्ट नेम प्लस क्या ऐड कर दूंगा. तो जिसके लिए भी मैं क्वेरी कर रहा हूँगा उसके साथ क्या ऐड होके जाएगा? डोमेन नेम. एग्री और नॉट? एग्री? जब भी वो डोमेन नेम कहाँ तक पहुंचेगा? सर्वर तक. सर्वर कहेगा होस्ट के लिए मेरे पास कोई डेटाबेस एग्जिस्ट, क्योंकि सर्वर के पास डेटाबेस किसके लिए एग्जिस्ट करता है, R1 के लिए, लेकिन क्लाइंट रिक्वेस्ट किसके लिए भेज रहा है, R1.lab.local के लिए। तो यहाँ पे दो चीजें हैं, अगर आपको क्लाइंट पर डोमेन नेम यूज करना है आप कर सकते हो, लेकिन आपको सर्वर पे एंट्री किसके लिए बनानी पड़ेगी, डेटाबेस में R1.lab.local के लिए। दूसरी चीज, मैं यहाँ से डोमेन नेम को क्या कर दूं, रिमूव। ठीक है जी, करके दिखा देता हूँ। चलाओ भाई इसको फटाफट। चल नहीं रहा, लाइट नहीं है। कोई ऐसा जिसको ये बात समझ में ना आई हो, सर्वर पे बाय डिफॉल्ट डेटाबेस किसके नाम से है, R1 के नाम से। क्लियर, मैंने सर्वर को यही बता रखा है ना, R1 के लिए आईपी क्या 11.1.1. लेकिन अगर क्लाइंट पे डोमेन नेम डिफाइंड होता है तो क्लाइंट क्या करता है, जो लुकअप करता है वो जो आप नाम दे रहे हो प्लस डोमेन नेम के लिए करता है। ठीक है जी। अब मैं किस पे चलूं, R2 पे। मैंने R2 पे जाके कमांड चला दी, नो आईपी डोमेन नेम। अब देखो मैंने किसको एक्सेस करने की कोशिश की, कनेक्शन रिफ्यूज्ड बाय रिमोट होस्ट। ये तो मैंने टेलनेट को क्या कर रखा है, ऑफ, इसलिए मैसेज आया। इसका मतलब मेरा डीएनएस काम कर गया, उसने मुझे रिप्लाई दे दिया। अब देखो ये जो डीएनएस क्वेरी जा रही है उसमें नेम क्या जा रहा है, R1, और डेटाबेस भी किसके लिए पड़ा है उसके पास, R1 के लिए। ठीक है जी। जब भी डोमेन नेम डिफाइंड होता है तो ये गलती रियल टाइम में बहुत ज्यादा होती है, कभी भी क्लाइंट पे डोमेन नेम डिफाइंड होना नहीं चाहिए। दिस थिंग इज क्लियर। अगर मैं करूं SSH -L R1 आईपी एड्रेस, सॉरी यूजर नेम, पासवर्ड, मतलब क्लाइंट ने रिक्वेस्ट भेजी R1 के लिए, किसको, सर्वर को। भाई बता भाई R1 कौन है, हु इज R1। सर्वर विल टेल हिम R1 इज 11.1.1.1. Now he will send the actual TCP request. See now, first of all request is of DNS, agree. After that SYN plus ACK and ACK. Now see here, standard query for R1, standard query response A, R1 is 11.1.1.1. DNS server ने reply दिया. Now he will build a three-way handshake because SSH will work on which protocol? TCP. This thing is clear. Now the main thing, everything is encrypted, everything is with the key that I have shown you in the beginning of practical. Fine. So guys, that's all about SSH. How you can SSH using IP, how you can SSH using DNS. Fine. Now if you don't want to use DNS, what you can do, you can create static entry on each of the device. Like I am on R3, On R3, I have not configured any DNS settings, but I can do one thing, like I can tell R3 as IP host. R1 means 11.1.1.1. I have created a local entry on R3. Now I will send a request SSH minus L test R1. He is asking for a password. In this case, there will be no DNS lookups because this guy is having a static entry. This guy is having a static entry. This thing is clear. But in case of R2, translating R1, domain server is 11.1.1.1. Okay. He has given a reply to me. Now I will try to form a TCP connection. This thing is clear. In one case, R1 is resolved through DNS server. In other case, R1 is resolved through local database. So it's your wish by what you have to do the practical. It's very easy, man. On PC you can define IP address of DNS server, and on PC there is no concept of domain name. कौन कौन TCP यूज कर रहा है? करता ही नहीं. Clear, bhai? Next protocol is CDP. Fine. So to view CDP, हाँ भाई, protocol is Cisco Discovery Protocol. पहला क्वेश्चन, फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, at which layer CDP will work? पहला क्वेश्चन यही होता है हमेशा, कौन सी लेयर पे प्रोटोकॉल काम करेगा. Layer 3. Use of CDP. It is a layer 2. It gives information only about directly connected clients. Why? गलती हो गई। बहुत सही लड़का है, बहुत। रवि नाम है ना आपका? अरे भाई है तो मेरा। मैं भी गलती ऐसे ही पकड़ता हूँ। हाँ भाई, इतनी बात क्लियर? अप टू दिस एनी प्रॉब्लम? ज़्यादा बताना नहीं है। If I run the command no IP domain name, see there, I'm getting entry this time for not for, because this time is expiring. Okay, we haven't discussed the time yet. Fine. First command about CDP, show CDP. What information is there? Sending CDP packets after every, sending a hold time value of, what is hold time?
Waiting for the reply.
Hold time,
You're waiting for the reply.
चलो ठीक। आपका नाम? सौरभ। सौरभ की गर्लफ्रेंड है? फाइन। सौरभ की गर्लफ्रेंड, सौरभ हैज अ गर्लफ्रेंड। सौरभ लव्स हिज गर्लफ्रेंड सो मच। सौरभ उससे बात किए बिना सोता नहीं। एक दिन गर्लफ्रेंड का फोन खराब हो गया तो क्या सौरभ सोएगा ही नहीं? If her phone is not working fine, not working fine, sorry, not working fine, Saurabh will not sleep. It's not possible. Saurabh will wait for a whole time period. Yes. Now it's done. I have to sleep. You have to move on. Fine. So, both routers are exchanging CDP packets after every 60 seconds. Agree? Now, if one router stops sending CDP packets, other router will wait for 180 seconds. After 180 seconds, he will remove his entry. You can see here, entry for r3.lab.local will be removed. Again table will be built. Fine. So this thing is clear. What do you mean by hold time period? Now, CDP is by default enabled on all interfaces of a device, whether it is router, whether it is switch. To globally disable CDP, command is, what do you mean by globally? I want to disable CDP for the whole device. Command will be no CDP run. This command will disable CDP on the device. This thing is clear? It means CDP run will enable CDP globally on the device. This thing is clear? Next thing. This is the command by which you can enable or disable CDP on per interface basis. This thing is clear? If I want to enable CDP, like I have two interfaces. One is connected to internet. One is connected to my local LAN. On my local LAN, I want to send CDP packets, but not to the internet. So I can disable interface. I can disable CDP on the interface which is connected to internet. So I will go in the interface and I will write there no CDP enable. Router or switch or any device will never send CDP packets on that particular interface. This thing is clear? Any issue? No. You can check here, show CDP. No result. It is working. This thing is clear. Why it is not showing any result? Because CDP is disabled. You can check here, show run interface FN0/0. No CDP enabled. This thing is clear. So these are the verification commands that you can keep in mind. Commands are show CDP first of all. After that show CDP neighbor. After that show CDP interfaces. This thing is fine. Any problem? No. So this is the use of CDP. You can see here both timers are less than 120 seconds because I have disabled CDP on which interface? On this particular interface. R1 will never send CDP packets out of this interface. So after 120 seconds or after 180 seconds they will remove each other's entry. This thing is clear. Now next thing, interface FN0/0 is shut. My life, it's my life, it's my life, it's my life. I'm connecting two routers. Now look here. No, shut. But if I check show IP interface brief, you can see here status is up, but protocol is because the remote end is not up. This thing is fine. Should I close it? बंद कर दूं? कुछ आपको देखना तो नहीं है सीडीपी के बारे में? इस स्विच के पास iOS नहीं है ना भाई. It's my life, it's my life, it's my life. ठीक है जी, कांडी. It's my life, it's my life. What do you mean by local interface? Local interface of R1. What do you mean by port ID? Interface number of switch. Fine. Fine. पूछना कुछ इसमें? पोर्ट आईडी का मतलब होता है सामने वाले का इंटरफेस नंबर, रिमोट एंड पोर्ट नंबर. लोकल इंटरफेस मीन्स माय पोर्ट नंबर. फाइन. दिखा दिया स्विच भी, क्योंकि स्विच में क्या है? iOS. देखो जी, मैंने गलत कमांड लिखी राउटर ने किसके पास भेज दिया? ठीक है जी, दिस थिंग इज क्लियर। अब मैं चाहता हूं कि मैं जब भी गलत कमांड लिखूं, whenever I will type a wrong command, router will never send it to the domain server. So what command I can run? No IP domain lookup. From now, router will never look for domain server. It means one thing. This time, this router cannot act as DNS client. Fine. This time, router cannot act as, because he will never send request to DNS server. Fine. Any issue? No. That's all for the day.